Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am super excited to be bringing you guys a new tutorial today. This is a Halloween inspired cardigan tutorial, which is the one that I'm wearing right now. This is my new double Toil and Trouble cardigan. And you guys can see it's just a kind of regular length, hits me at the waist. You'll be able to make it longer if you'd like. Obviously we're using double crochet to make this since it's the double Toil and Trouble cardigan. So very easy for beginners to make. You can see the back here. And then I ended with a single crochet border. All right, so what's special about this tutorial is I really want to start focusing on not just showing you how to make the item, but I want to make sure that if you struggle to read crochet patterns, we're going to walk through the pattern together. We are going to be following along with my actual written pattern. This is how I do all of my patterns on Etsy, so you'll be able to go through this with me. So if you're new to following patterns, I hope this will actually help you get more comfortable reading crochet patterns, because that'll open up a whole world of new projects for you if that's something that you've struggled with in the past. What you're going to need for this project. For this particular cardigan that I made, I used Hobie's Honey Bunny Candy yarn. This says it's a super bulky weight, but it is a lighter super bulky weight yarn. That's a 6-weight yarn, so that's what you'll find on the back of the label. You'll see a little number 6 on the yarn label. For the tutorial, I decided to go with Bernat Blanket yarn. This is one of my favorites especially for beginners. It's easy to get. You get a lot of yardage. It's going to be a little bit chunkier than this Halloween Honey Bunny Candy. So it's not going to be, you see, this is almost, and I kind of like this effect for Halloween because it almost reminds me of like a spider web or a mesh stitch. Especially at the shoulders where it kind of pulls down with the weight of the cardigan. It's a little airier when you use this lighter weight yarn. So the one that I make on the tutorial is going to be just a little bit chunkier because it'll fill those holes a little bit more. I am going to be using a couple of different colors. I wanted a Halloween theme, so I'm going to be doing my orange, my yellow, 2 different purples, and then I have a gray that I'm going to use as a filler in between rows. So I'm going to be switching colors. On this one, I switched colors every 4 rows. I'm going to switch every row with these. You can either follow along free on my blog. I will have this available on my blog. The link is going to be down below. You can also purchase the ad-free stylized pattern. So this is what you get when you purchase from me on Etsy. So you've got all of your photos and you've got it all nice, beautiful pattern that you can print out if you want to. That's in my Etsy shop, link down below. I am going to be making a medium large size. You're going to be able to follow along with whatever size that you want to make. And you are going to need a 16mm hook. This is my 16mm hook. These are our 3D printed hooks that we create in resin coat, and you can find these in our Etsy shop, also link in the description. You should be able to find something like this on Amazon. This is just a Susan Bates 16mm hook if you are new to the jumbo world. Especially 16mm hooks and 15mm hooks aren't always as easy to find out and about at stores. So check Amazon if you need to. I'll have a few links below on where you can find some of these hooks, but I'm using a 16mm from our shop. You'll need to grab some scissors and a tapestry needle for weaving in your ends. I think that's everything. So you guys excited? I'm excited. So we are going to flip the camera around and get started on making this wonderful double Toil and Trouble cardigan. I am so excited about this follow along style pattern tutorial because I really want everyone to feel confident not only watching a video tutorial, but following along with the pattern, because once you learn how to read patterns, it's going to open all the doors to all the projects that you would like to do, even if they don't have a video to follow along. So one of the first things that I like to do when I'm following a pattern is print the pattern out. Maybe you've got it on your iPad or something, but something where you can actually mark up the pattern. So the first thing that I like to do is you choose which size you're going to be making. I'm going to size up. I usually make a small medium. I want more of an oversized feel, so I think I'm going to go with just the medium large. So I'm going to highlight that. So that means that throughout this pattern, I'm going to be following the 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to follow the 4th set of instructions in this parentheses section. So that means, let's see if we look at the yardage, I'm going to need 650 yards of yarn. Moving into the actual pattern section, the first page of the pattern, starting your back panel. This is where marking up your size is helpful. So I'm following the 4th number. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the number of the size that I'm supposed to be following all the way throughout the pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you watch, it's the same here on these. So I've got this range. So I'm following the 4th range of numbers. 2, 3, 4. And you can do that all the way throughout your pattern. I am going to start with my dark purple yarn. I'm going to hate myself for the amount of ends that I'm going to have to weave in because I'm using all these different colors, but I feel like it's going to be so pretty doing it that way. So the first thing that you're going to do, so you're reading here, is chain 19 or chain the number listed for your size. So I'm going to be chaining 26. So I have chain 26, first line of the pattern down. Row 1, we are going to DC, this stands for double crochet, into the 3rd chain from the hook. So FTH stands for from the hook, and DC, so double crochet across and then turn. All right, so DC in the 3rd chain from the hook. So this is the first chain from the hook right here, 2nd chain from the hook, 3rd chain from the hook. So this is where we're going to be working our first double crochet stitch. So I'm going to create my double crochet stitch. If you need help with specific stitches, so like if you have not yet learned how to do the double crochet stitch, I do have a video that shows all of the different basic stitches. So if you need to brush up on how to create these basic stitches, I do have an entire playlist here on my YouTube channel just for you. So now we are going to be working these double crochet stitches all the way down the chain. So we're going to work these all the way across the chain. All right, I have worked my double crochet stitches all the way down my chain. I have 1 stitch left here. So following along with the pattern, these numbers in brackets will tell you how many stitches you should have total at the end of that row. So at the end of row 1, I should have 24 total double crochet stitches. So I can do a quick count starting here on the first stitch, and you can see your little V's across the top. So I see that that's my first stitch here. So I can count across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. And I have 1 left here for a total of 24. Perfect. So what I stopped before this last stitch because I want to show you guys how I change colors. I'm going to be changing colors on every single row for this particular cardigan that I'm making. Now in the pattern, I actually made each of my stripes 4 rows tall. So I didn't switch colors until the 5th row. But this one, I wanted to do more colors and more striping and really showcase, you have lots of options when you're following patterns. You can change up the color work if you want to, or you can make it all one color, make it easy. But I wanted to show you guys how I change my color. So I am going to be going from the purple to this gray color. I will start to work my final stitch. So I've got one more double crochet that has to be worked into this final chain stitch. It was actually our first chain stitch here. So I'm going to start exactly the same as I usually do. I've got my 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2. Now, this would be the last yarn over here because I'd yarn over and pull through, and that would finish my double crochet stitch. So on that final yarn over, I'm going to yarn over with my new color. All right. So I'm going to give myself a nice long tail to make it easier to weave my ends in. And I'm going to hold that over the hook. I'm going to pull it through, and then I'm going to tighten down that last piece of purple here. There we go. And then I'm going to turn my work just like it says to in the pattern. So at the end here, you can see you go all the way across and then you turn your work. Right, so that's what I'm doing. I'm turning my work around with my new color. And then at the beginning of row 2, so this is row 2 through 16. So that means that for the next 16 rows, you're going to repeat the same instructions. So starting with row 2, and I'm actually doing 2 through 17 for mine. So that just means that there's a little bit more length. So I'm going to chain 2 to start off row 2, and then I'm going to work my double crochets across just like I did before and end with 24. We're not doing any kinds of increasing here, so I'll have the same number of stitches all the way up the back panel. All right, so I'm going to chain 2 with my new color, and this just creates a nice seamless transition. So you can see that change from purple to gray. I can move this. It's a really nice transition doing it that way. So that's just a preference. You do not have to do it that way. That's just something that I like to do. So from here, I chained 2, and I'm going to work into this very first double crochet from the last row. Just like that. And I'm going to work the double crochet stitches all the way across again. All right, so you can see that start here. And I'm going to work those double crochets all the way across. All right, I have finished row 2. So I worked my double crochets all the way across. I have 1 space left. Now, if you are new to crocheting garments or really just new to crochet in general, it can be easy sometimes to add or subtract stitches accidentally. Okay, so I always recommend that when you finish a row, you count your stitches. And that's also, again, why there's this reminder that you should have 24 stitches at the end of every row. So before you turn your work and start the next row, do a count. So I should have 24 stitches, and I can turn my work up and see where my V's start right here, this like V for the top of the stitch. So this is my first stitch, and I can count across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and I have 1 left because I'm going to change colors again. So that is just my precaution to you to keep you from accidentally adding or subtracting stitches at the beginning and end of the rows, because sometimes it can be a little difficult to see whether or not it's actually a stitch that you're working into. You don't want to work into these side spaces where you have chained 2. That does not count as a stitch. You're just working into the stitches, but counting helps with all of that. So I am now going to switch over to this beautiful lavender color, and I will show that again. All right, now I am going to start row number 3. So you can follow along here. I am going to repeat this for 17 rows. So I'm going to repeat this until I get to row number 17. I'm not going to tie off, and that's when we're going to move on to the next section. So depending on the size that you're making, you may be working until you get to 18 rows or 16 rows. So it's either 16, 17, or 18 rows that you are repeating the same instructions that you just did. So this panel is just going to get longer and longer. So I am going to meet back up with you guys when I get to my 17th row. When I complete that, I'll come back and we'll check back in and we'll move on to the next section of the pattern. And this is what it's going to look like when you get done. Now that I have finished 17 rows and I did not tie my work off, so you can see here, let's see, don't tie off after the end. So I'm 2 to 17, finished number 17. I did not tie off my work. Let's see, if you want to add more length to your cardigan, now's the time to do so. So if you do decide that you want your cardigan to be longer, each row that you add is going to add about an inch of length to your cardigan. All right, creating your front panels. This is the next step. So we did not tie off. The first front panel is going to start with either row 17. So if you ended on row 16, your next row would be row 17. Mine is going to be row 18. So I'm going to do a quick highlight session. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm following that fourth number or that fourth range. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's just super helpful to have these, so you're not seeking out and accidentally following the wrong set of numbers. For my first front panel, it's going to not only be row 18, but it's going to start over as row 1. So starting the first front panel, this 18th row, since we didn't tie off, is also going to be row 1 of your front panel. So you're going to start your counts back over again. So for row 1 / row 18, I'm going to chain 2. So let's pull this down and I can go ahead and just follow along. So I've already turned my work. I'm going to chain 1, 2. And then I am going to DC, so double crochet, into the next 9 stitches. All right, so following along, I'm turning my work. You can see here, this is that row completed. So I'm going to do that on here. So I need to crochet 9 double crochet stitches. Okay, I also wanted to say that you can see I didn't change colors. So I have changed colors every single row up until here. But our back panel is going to be the same number of rows long as our front panel, so the one I'm working on. I wanted the rows to match up. So since I started with purple and I ended with purple, I wanted to start with purple and end with purple because this is going to flip over and that way all of my colors will match up. So I am going to switch colors now. So I have finished my 9 double crochet stitches. I am now going to move on to rows 2, and actually I am following the 4th range. So rows 2 through 17, just like we did on the back panel for row 2 through 17, but I'm going to be chaining 2 and double crocheting 9 across. So I'm going to be repeating exactly what I did here, and I'm going to do that for a total of 17 rows. Now, keep in mind, if you decided you wanted to add more length to your back panel, be sure you wrote that number down. How many additional rows did you add? Because you're going to need to add that same number of rows to the front panel. So I'm going to take that last stitch out, okay, and I'm going to yarn over with my gray yarn, pull that through. So now I've got my new color, and I'm going to turn my work. All right, so I'm just going to literally flip that whole thing around. There we are. And now I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to work the 9 double crochet stitches across, right? So I'm going to be working this direction across, and I'm going to do the same thing at the end. I'm going to change my colors, turn my work, start back the other way until I have another 17 rows. So this is going to look like a big L shape. So we can turn it. So you guys can see this is the length of my back, and I'm going to just continue up this direction. And you can see it in the pattern, let's see, it would be this way, that I'm going to be creating an L shape because my front panel is going to be coming up off of the back panel. Since we did not tie off or anything, you don't have to seam your shoulder up, you're just working it off of here. All right, so we are going to meet back up when I have completed the front panel, and we will move on to the second front panel together. I had to squish this a little so it all fits so you guys can see the entire body, and then as I move this up, we can see the entire first front panel finished. So this is going to be flipping down over the back panel, and that's how you'll seam up the sides. So we are going to now move on to the second front panel since we've got the first one completed. And if you remember, I started with a row of dark purple for my first front panel. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. Since we worked the first row of the front panel moving in this direction, we want to match that up. So we're going to need to work the second panel in this direction, which means we're going to want to start on this side of the panel so that we can work our first row this direction. Second front panel. Join with a slip stitch into the 9th stitch from the outer corner opposite the newly created front panel. All right, so I've got a photo here showing exactly what I'm doing there. So I'm going to join with a slip stitch into the 9th stitch from this outer corner. All right, so I'm going to count in 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9. I'm going to stick my hook in there just to mark my spot while I get my yarn ready. And I'm going to join with a slip stitch. So I'm going to start with a slip knot. I'm going to place the slip knot over my hook, insert my hook, yarn over, pull through pull through the entire thing. So I pulled through the yarn on my hook as well, and that is my slip stitch. After you slip stitch, you're going to chain 2 and DC 1 in the next 9 stitches to the end, and then turn your work. So I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to work my first double crochet into the same space that I joined into. And then I'm going to work the double crochet stitches all the way across to the end, and I should have a total of 9 when I get done. All right, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And from here, I'm going to change to my next color, because like I did stripes for every color, so I'm going to change to gray. I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to work my next row all the way across, and I'm going to repeat the exact same way that you did your first panel. You're going to repeat this way. So I'm going to make 17 rows to complete my second panel. So you can see that here, rows 2 through 17. Chain 2, DC across, turn, and then you're going to tie off at the end. And I believe, yes, I have a photo. This is what it's going to look like. So I will see you guys back when I complete that panel, and we will move on to sewing up the sides to create our armholes. I have finished both of my front panels, and I wanted to show you guys what this looked like before I set up to show you guys the next step, because I didn't know if you guys would be able to see everything. But from here, you're going to flip these down, and we are going to sew up the sides. So following along with the pattern, time to sew up your edges. I folded the front panels down and started at the bottom of the piece on each side and sew up the sides, leaving, now this depends on the size that you are following. I'm going to highlight the 4th number for myself. So I am going to be sewing up the sides, leaving 7 rows from the top, which is up here. So this is the top of your garment. Here's the bottom where it's open. Unworked, creating the armholes. I prefer to use a variation of the mattress stitch, so I will show you what I do to sew up my sides. Now, what I also like to do is to go ahead and mark where I need to stop sewing. I like to use stitch markers. So, of course, Halloween, I had to use my lovely little ghost stitch markers for this. I'm going to scoot this over, And my first row of the front panel is purple, just like the last row of the back panel is purple. So it'll be easy for me, since I changed rows, to count. Like I said, I have to do 7. I have to leave 7 rows unworked. So I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to be stopping on my yellow row. All right. And then same on the back. My colors are a little off because I went the other direction, which I was not thinking about that. So I can see my purple and yellow are off. But back here we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the light purple is this where I'm going to stop here. And technically, you could go ahead and use the same stitch marker for both of these, and you could try it on and make sure that your armhole is big enough. That's always an option, and you could make it larger or smaller depending on how wide you'd like your armhole to be. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now that I have my sides marked, I am going to use my neutral gray because I have the most of this, and I'm going to measure triple what I need to go across this section, and I'm going to cut. If you are having issues with this, if you use something like a blanket yarn or a bulky yarn that snaps more easily, okay, if you start to pull this tight and this snaps, you can use, so this is a super bulky, you could use a worsted or a bulky weight yarn that's a little bit smaller in just a plain acrylic or something a little bit tougher so that you can pull a little bit harder to seam up your work if you need to. So I'm going to start at the bottom. So I'm actually going to flip my work around. And I like to take, so this is the seam over here. I like to flip it this way so that now my seam is right here. Right? And that just makes it easier for me to see everything. All right. So this is where I'm going to be seaming. And obviously this is where I'm going to stop, where my stitch markers are. So I've got my handy dandy tapestry needle here. I'm going to go ahead and push my yarn through the needle. And the way that I like to seam edges up is I like to go into the back side of the first stitch. I like to go in through the back side of the stitch, pull through, leaving myself a fairly long tail just to make sure I have enough room to weave in my ends. And then you can see the back side of this stitch. And then I continue that. So I'm working into the back side of the stitch. Back side of the stitch. And I just realized, let's match this up. So I went through, this makes it a little bit easier having the changed rows. But you see I went through the top of the purple, middle of the purple, and so I need to go through the purple stitch here. Then I'm going to move on to the back side of the gray, just to make sure it stays nice and lined up, especially with my color changes. Even if I messed up on my light purple and my pink, not changing at the same time. Now once you have a couple of stitches, I'm going to keep this fairly tight and I'm going to pull this tight. Now this is where, again, you might have an issue with your yarn wanting to snap if you're using something like a Bernat Blanket. So I'm having to just be gentle. I can't pull as hard as I would using a different yarn. So now I'm going to go through the purple and the yellow, since that's across from it. Backside, backside. Pull that tight. And then gray, backside of gray, backside of gray. Just pull that a little tight there. Now you don't want to pull it so tight that you start to cinch your work. So you don't want it to be pulling your work in, or the sides of your cardigan are going to be cinched up and they won't lay as flat. I've got so many ends to weave in, so I'm having to just kind of tuck them in while I work on this part. All right, so now we're going to go backside of orange. Backside of orange. I like to go underneath at least 2 strands of yarn. So see, I've got my 1 strand of yarn, 2 strands of yarn, just to keep it a little bit more secure.
All right, so that's the orange. I feel like there's a little bit of space here, and you can do this too. I'm going to double up on my orange. I'm going to go through this top because these are double crochets. So if you feel like there's going to be too big of a gap, you can always go through both the top and bottom kind of section of that stitch. So you just kind of play it by ear. So gray. So I'll do that here. I've got my yellow and purple. And I want to, let's do yellow and purple again. And you get the gist. So working that, and I've only got a few more, so let's finish it up because here's where I stop. I'm almost there. Let's go gray, gray, and then purple, getting underneath 2 strands of yarn, and purple, making sure I just kind of pull that kind of tight. I'm not really so worried about that on this one. Then gray and gray. All right, I'm going to do one last at the top of the gray, one last pull through here. And I'm leaving the spaces with the stitch markers open, so I don't want to work into these. I'm going to leave this open. And then what I like to do here is just kind of double back on myself. I'll go underneath 1 strand of yarn here, and then I'll go through that hole. So I don't pull it all the way through. Go through that hole, pull that tight, and then I am ready to weave that in. All right, so now I have my armhole, and I can actually halfway try this on. So I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. Now that you have finished sewing up the sides, we are moving on to the front and bottom border. So row 1, starting at the bottom corner of the left front panel, join with a single crochet, SC, see bottom right photo. So right here is where you're joining with your first single crochet, which is going to be right here in the corner of this purple row. And after you join with your single crochet, you're going to chain 1 and place another single crochet into the same space you joined into. So let's do that first. I'm going to make my slip knot, insert my hook into the bottom space of this row, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through. And that is how I join with a single crochet. So that creates your first single crochet. And then you're going to chain 1 and place another single crochet into the same space. Now, pro tip on this one, because it can be kind of difficult to find that that chain space. So where you placed the chain space in between the 2 single crochet stitches, I highly recommend placing a stitch marker. Let's grab one of the stitch markers that we used for the armholes. Place a stitch marker in that chain space because you are going to use that chain space later and you're going to want to be able to find it easily. So I placed my stitch marker right there in the chain space. So we have completed this first portion. Join with an SC, chain 1, then SC into the same space you joined into. Then continue to single crochet all the way around the front and bottom of the cardigan. So that means all the way up around the front, so around the neckline, the other side front border, and then around the bottom, all right? But it also says, let's see, placing another single crochet, chain 1, single crochet combination that we just finished. You want to place another one of those into the bottom inner corner of the opposite front panel. So you placed one on this side, you're going to want to place one on this side. So once you work around up this border, across the neck and down, we're placing another one in this corner before we move on to working those single crochets around the bottom border. Let's see, join into the first single crochet of the row with a slip stitch and then turn. So that's going to be, once you complete that entire border, you're going to be joining into this very first single crochet that you joined with. You're going to join into that with a slip stitch once you finish your entire border. This is important too down here. Working into the sides of double crochet stitches can be tricky. You don't want to place 2 single crochet stitches to 1 double crochet row. You're going to end up with a really big border that doesn't lay flat. You also don't want to place just 1 single crochet stitch into the side of each double crochet because your border will end up being a little too small, and it also will not lay flat. So my favorite combination to use when picking up stitches into the sides of the DC rows, I placed 5 single crochet stitches for every 4 double crochet rows. This keeps the border nice and flat all the way around. I've already placed 1 here. I'm going to count that one because this is kind of my turning row. So this is going to be number 1. And so what I'm going to do is work single crochet, single crochet, single crochet. So 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to put 2 single crochets into my gray row. So I'm going to work, this is the first single crochet that I'm counting for the combination for going into the sides of these. So I'm going to place another one into the gray and then into the yellow and then into the bottom half of the gray. So that means 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 double crochet rows starting with the purple. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I need to place 5 single crochet rows within that section. So I'm placing my 5th one on the top side. So I'm not going through the same space that I did here. I'm going to go through one right next to it because there are technically two spaces per each double crochet that you can work into. And then I'm going to repeat that. So I'm going to go through, trying to find, I like to go underneath at least 2 pieces of yarn, just like I do when I'm doing the mattress stitch. So I like to find at least 2 pieces of yarn to go under. So that's 1 row, 2 rows, 3 rows, and then again I'm going to be placing 2 single crochet stitches into the side of this next gray row. So that way I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, but 5 stitches across those rows. And you can see this is laying nice and flat. It's not puckering, it's not pulling. So we're going to do that again. We've got a 1, 2, 3, and then 2 single crochets into the gray space. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 into the gray. And then I've got one last one at the top here with this purple. And I have worked all the way up this side. So now I'm going to kind of turn my work just so it's easy to access. And I'm going to flip it up a little bit so that I can see the stitches across the neck. I like to place an extra one here in the corner. So that is where the panel attaches to the neck. So there's one right in the corner so I don't have a hole there. That's optional, that I like to do that. And then I work all the way across the neck. And then I place another one in the corner space where that front panel attaches to the back panel. Turn my work again. And I'm going to work that same combination that I did on this side across this side. So I'll be placing 1 in the purple, the next one in the gray, 1 in the gray, 1 in the purple, and then 2 into this 4th gray row. So we're going to go here, 1 and 2. And I'm going to repeat that all the way across. All right, I've worked all the way down this other side, so you can see my border coming along nicely. Now, remember, in this bottom corner, before we work around the bottom, we're going to place a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet into that same space. And then we are going to use a stitch marker, if you'd like. Place a stitch marker. There we go. And now we are going to work all the way around the bottom, so that allowed me to kind of turn my work, creating that single crochet, chain, single crochet, creates kind of a corner for you there. So now you are just going to work into each of these double crochet spaces, right? So you've got double crochet stitches. You don't have to do any, you don't have to add anything, right? Because we're not working into the sides of the rows. You're just going to place 1 single crochet for each double crochet. No increasing or anything like that. And we're just going to work this all the way around. All right, I have worked my gray border all the way around the back, and I have gotten to the point where I have 1 single crochet stitch left. Find my right. Here we go. So I'm going to place that final single crochet stitch into that bottom stitch here. And then I'm going to join, so you see the stitch marker is the chain space. So I'm going to be working into this stitch that I created right before the chain space. I don't want to work into the chain space. I'm going to use a slip stitch and join, just like that. And then I'm going to chain 1. Let's see. Oh, I think I'm supposed to turn before I chain 1, but that's fine. You can do it either way. So you can see here where I joined into the first single crochet of the row with a slip stitch. That's what I just did, and turn. And then the next page, row 2, you start with a chain 1. All right, so you can either chain 1 and then turn, or turn and then chain 1. I already chained 1, so I'm going to turn my work, which literally just means I'm going to flip this. So if I wasn't going to turn my work, I'd work back into the front side of these stitches. All right, so I would just be working into these stitches across. Instead, I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to flip it over so that I can work into the back side of the stitches, right? So I've already turned and chained 1. I've turned my work around, and we are going to single crochet all the way around, placing the single crochet, chain, single crochet combo into each of the chain spaces from the last row at each of the front panel's inner corners. And then you're going to join once you finish that whole row. Don't turn, and repeat row 2 until you're happy with the width of the border. All right? So I will work. So the chains back here, I'm going this way, so I'm not going to have to put the chain, the single crochet, chain 2 single crochet into this space until I get back around to it. But I'm going to work my single crochets all the way across, and I'll just show you what I mean by working into the wrong side of the stitch. This is the back side of the row that you just created, and I'm just going to work my single crochet stitches into the backs of these stitches. All right, so just doing my single crochets like I normally would. I'm just going into the back of the row instead of the front of the row. Just like that. And as you can see, I'm going around the bottom first. All right? So I'm going to continue along here all the way around, all the way until I get to this stitch marker. Once I get to the stitch marker, I'm going to place a single crochet, chain stitch, single crochet combination, just like I did here, but into this chain space. And it's going to create a nice turn on this row. And then I will continue working all the way up the border, just like I did on the first row, all the way around, all the way down until I get to this next one right here. And I'm going to place a single crochet, chain one single crochet combination into this one space. And when I finish that, I'm going to immediately use a slip stitch to join into this very first single crochet from row 2 that I just completed on this second row. All right, so we're going to do that, and then you're going to repeat that as many times as you want. You can see this is one row completed right here, this photo, just like I have here. This is multiple rows completed. I can't remember, but I believe I did 4 rounds and just repeated over and over again. And remember, each time you create that chain, that single crochet, chain 1, single crochet combo, like you did here, place a stitch marker into the chain space so that each time you repeat the row, you're going to find that easily to place your next single crochet, chain 1, single crochet combo in there. So we're going to repeat this. I'm probably going to repeat it probably 3 or 4 times, and then we will meet back up, because after that we are going to start the sleeves. So try this on as you go. Each time you add a row, try it on, see what you like, and then we'll come back and start the sleeves together. All right, I am finished with my front border. I'm going to show you guys. Oh, I'm weaving in my ends too, so that's not finished yet, but this is where I'm at. You can see my final stitch markers in those corners. I did 4 rounds, and I turned between every row. I ended up updating the pattern to turn for each row. If you didn't, that's okay. It's not gonna mess anything up. It will look a little different the way that the stitches stack up, but this is when I wanted to do a quick fit check. And I have to say, I am very happy with how this one's turning out. It pretty much stays closed on its own, and I have room to kind of wrap, which is what I wanted. I wanted it to be super cozy, so you can see how this fits. Very nice fit. I love the blanket yarn. It's very soft. So from here, we are finished with the body of the cardigan, and we are going to start on the sleeves. All right, we are ready to move on to the sleeves. So I am going to pull my cardigan over to the side so I can see my sleeve hole, my sleeve opening here. We are going to reference our handy dandy pattern. Starting your sleeves, you're going to join at the bottom of the armhole, and we're going to join with a slip stitch. So I need to add that, but we're going to join with a slip stitch, chain 2, and then I am going to pick up 18. I had forgotten to highlight the 4th number on this one. So I am going to be picking up 18 stitches around the armhole. So let's join with a slip stitch and chain 2, and then we'll start to work our 18 stitches around the armhole. All right. I like to choose, obviously I'm going to choose this side. I'm going to work up this direction. I'm not going to join into the very bottom, like there's not really a stitch there. I'm going to join right next to it. So I left, starting with this row, this colored row, that's where I left my opening to start. So I'm going to start by working into that yellow row. So that's where I'm going to join. So let's slip knot. Create our slip knot, insert our hook. I'm going to insert my hook into that first row, yarn over and pull through, then pull through the loop on my hook. That is our slip stitch join. And then we're going to chain 2. That does not count as a stitch. So the first double crochet stitch that you work around is going to be worked into the same space that you joined into. So yarn over, pull through, pull through. So if I'm going to be working 18 stitches around, then if I count my rows, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows that are open, which means that I'm going to have to add 2 extra double crochet stitches into this that are not just in the sides of this, because that would only be 7. All right. So what I like to do is place a stitch marker at the top And I like to do it on both sides. So this is the top row of the front panel and the top row of the back panel. So I know, since I'm cutting it in half and it says I need to do 18, then I should have 9 up this side and 9 down this side. And that just helps me break it up and I don't have to keep counting. So right now I've got 1. So I'm going to do number 2. And then 3. Trying to work in the bottom of that one. Whoop. Oh, I can't seem to get that out of there. Let's see. There we go. So that's 3, 4. So I put 2 stitches into the orange striped row. So now I have 4, 5, 6. I'm going to place 2 into the purple row as well. So I'm going to have 7. Oop. Stitches are slipping out. There we go. So that was 7. So now I just have 8 and 9. So there's 8. 9 is going to go where I placed my first stitch marker. So I am good up this side. I have 9, so now I need 9 down the other side. So I'm just going to kind of turn my work so it's easier for me to see what I'm doing. I'm going to take this stitch marker out, and I'm actually going to go ahead and place one kind of in between. So I had my stitch marker here. I'm going to place my first one before the first stitch marker. Number 2 is going to go in the stitch marker. And since that was technically number 1, so there's number 2, here's number 1, I'm going to place this because that will count as number 1. And from there I need, this is 1, 2, and I need 9. So there's 2. 3. 4. 5 into the same row. So I've got 2 into the yellow row. See, I already lost count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh. There we go. 8. And 9 is the last one here in this bottom row. Okay, so once you have worked, so that is 18 around. So 18 double crochets around, which I finished. Join into the first DC using a slip stitch and turn. All right, so we are going to do exactly as it says. I'm going to find the top of that first stitch. So you can see my chain 2 over here. I'm not going to work into the chain 2. I'm going to work into the top of the first stitch. So if I lift this up, I can see my V's from that first stitch. I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull through the stitch, and pull through the loop on my hook. Tighten that up a little bit, and then I'm going to turn my work. Now here I need to change colors. So I'm going to do a quick color change. So I'm actually going to pull that join out. And I am going to join with my new color. So I'm going to leave myself a nice long tail, insert my hook back into the top of that stitch, pull the new color through, tighten up that gray end, cut the gray end. We're leaving a nice long tail so I can weave it in easily. And then from here, let's see, I'm going to turn my work now. So let's turn my work around. And again, that means that you are now going to be working into the inside of your stitches, into the inside of your armhole. And let's read the instructions first since we are following the pattern together. So rows 2 through 15. Now, arm length varies. Try your cardigan on once you get to row 15 and see where the sleeve hits you. Add or remove rows of DC as needed to achieve the look and length you'd like. So you can actually try it on as you go. You don't have to wait till you get to row 15. I do have a little bit longer of an arm on average, so 15 is great for me. But for 2 through 15, or as long as you need to, you're going to chain 2, double crochet around, join, and turn. And you're going to repeat that until your sleeve is as long as you like it. But you are going to do one more row of single crochet. When you get done with adding all of the length to your sleeve, you're going to add one row of single crochet to create a little bit of a cuff. And I actually don't have a picture of that on here, but you are going to add one more row of single crochet and you'll see that at the end. So that's not going to add a ton of length. So you can make sure that your sleeve is as long as you'd like it, and you'll add one more row of single crochet to create a little bit of a cuff and just a teeny bit more length. So from here, we're going to chain 2 and we're going to start to work our double crochet stitches into the inside of that first row. No increasing or decreasing, so be sure to count your stitches before you join at the end of each row to make sure you're not accidentally adding or subtracting any stitches. Another great trick, and I can't remember if we did this or not earlier, place a stitch marker into the top of your first stitch so you know where to join. When you get to the end of your row, you'll be joining where you place that stitch marker. So I'm just going to continue around until I have all 18 stitches, and I'm going to change colors each time. So my sleeve is just going to get longer and longer until it's as long as I'd like it to be. And like I said at the end, on row 16, or once you get your row once your sleeve is as long as you like, the next row, you're going to chain 1, single crochet around. So however many, I did 18 around, so I'm going to single crochet 18 around, join and tie off, and you're going to repeat this on the other side for your second sleeve. So at this point, we are done with the tutorial. I am going to meet you back here once my cardigan is complete, and we're going to see what it looks like. It's finally finished! You guys, I'm so excited about this cardigan. The colors are perfection. I have just figured out my new favorite Halloween outfit. So, final reveal of the fit. I did end up adding one extra row on my sleeve. I didn't mean to. I have 16 rows, and then I made my 17th row the single crochet round. So you guys can see double crochet all the way down until I get to the very last gray row where I did single crochets, and it creates a little bit of a cuff. You can even size down on your hook when you do this last single crochet row if you want to. I just pulled my stitches a little tighter, but it creates a little bit of a cuff without being a true tight cuff around your sleeve. I wanted them longer, so they come down onto my hand, and I've got my spooky yarn tee. I've got my Halloween headband with the cookies and the Halloween lattes. Oh, and I found these amazing joggers on Amazon. I have to share these with you guys. If you're a jogger fan, I've been looking for some that come in fun colors, and I finally found these. Kind of hard to see on this video, but they've got pockets. They're higher waisted. They're really soft. You can see, whoop, there we go. Oh, get it all in the picture. Up this way. Very stretchy, soft material. I'm going to put all the information for my outfit down below if you want to check any of it out. But
The focus is on the cardigan. I am so happy with it. It's got a good flow to it despite being super bulky yarn because you're using that nice big hook. Like I said, I did 4 rows around for the border. Oh, I just love it so much. I'm so happy and I'm so glad I got to share this one with you guys in this way so you could follow the pattern along with me. I really hope you enjoyed it. I would love to see your cardigans. So please, if you're on Facebook, join my Facebook group. Info's down below. It's just a closed private Facebook group for Pink Sheep Design. Check that out. If you're on Instagram, tag me. I would love to see your finished cardigans. I am at Pink Sheep Design on Instagram. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. I would absolutely love to continue to grow here on YouTube. I think I said YouTube, didn't I? Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're not, because then I can continue to add more tutorials. So the more subscribers I have, the more it's worthwhile for me to put out more of these full tutorials for you guys. So yes, thank you so much for joining in. I really hope you loved it. Please comment below if you have any questions. I am listening. I am here. And let me know what you think. I would love to hear what you think of this tutorial, what you think of this finished jacket. I would love to know what colors you're using for yours, if you're going to make it Halloween, but you could make this Christmas. You could make it any time of year that you want. It's just a great, simple pattern. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And until next time, happy hooking!